Well, what's up, folks? It is Tuesday night, and yes, I'm back because unfortunately, my Tampa Bay Titans, as you guys see up there on the banner, lost for the season. They are out, did not make it to round two, but I do appreciate Mikey filling in for me last week, along with Rachel Brevet and Matt Rogers. So thanks to them for putting on episode number 139. But it is Tuesday night, episode 140, and tonight we do have Harry Mays. And if you guys have not heard of Harry Mays because maybe you're too young, maybe you just haven't tuned in, or maybe you're trying to figure out exactly where he is. Well, if you go to YouTube and look under Bet Parks, Betparx, and you look under there, geez, and I can't say it the way Harry says it, but I'll have him say it just so you guys know exactly where he is. With Jason Myrtetus, you guys can end up finding him and like and subscribe to the channel. Those guys would appreciate it, and so would everyone else. Therefore, they can continue making great content and keep having the fun that they willingly deserve to have, because it's always a great time with Harry. With Jason, you guys know he was with us just a couple of weeks ago, so it's always a good time to have him on there. And I attempted to get the former morning co-host with Harry on tonight, Nick Hale, but unfortunately, because he is extremely busy, I couldn't get him on. But nevertheless, we do have Harry Mays tonight. Joe Madden released from the Angels, yet no surprise. Obviously, Joe Girardi's been gone, and now the interim manager has put the Phillies back on the winning side. But we'll see how long the Philly faithful will ride his coattails before a 3 or 4 game losing streak happens, and then you'll see things going the natural Philly way, which is completely backwards. So we'll get into some baseball talk, not too much, because there's really not much going on as far as when the Phillies, you know, and the rest of Major League Baseball. But again, not surprising when it comes to Joe Madden. Eagles are still quiet throughout camp here. Things won't get wrapped up until next month. And the Flyers, well, they're still sitting at home. In the meantime, while the Tampa Bay Lightning continue to try the Eastern Conference Finals way of getting back to the Stanley Cup Finals, but they have to win tonight to tie up the series, or they will find themselves down 3-1 and try to go back to New York at Madison Square Garden, where they've been hot, the Rangers, that is, winning at home. So let's get into tonight. We do appreciate everyone tuning in, and we thank you for coming on from overseas, from stateside, down to South America. We do appreciate it all. I'm Angel, and welcome to Broster South. Now, normally he's dancing to the new intro song, but when he's not doing that, he's firing off questions away, and it is the Godfather, Mike Fuji. Fuji, what's happening tonight?
Angel, happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to everyone. Harry Mays in the house. Let's get into some Philly sports talk. Angel, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing just fantastic. We did reach 100 degrees down here in the steam bath that is Florida. And officially, we're not in summer because it starts June 21st, but it was hot. I don't mind because there's a local pool nearby. The beach is only 4 miles away, so it makes everything worthwhile. But hey, not complaining whatsoever, because it could always be worse. It could be wintertime, and around here, wintertime, all it means there'll be 80 degrees instead of 100. That's all. But it's all right. It's good stuff here in Florida. And from the cheap seats, we dragged him down from his own luxury box that he still has not shared with everyone. It is Ryan Neff from the cheap seats. Ryan, how are you this evening?
I'm Ryan Neff. It's great to be with everybody this evening.
Right.
Harry freaking Mays on tonight. We got to get into it. Phillies, Eagles, whatever. I may have a Flyers question or two. So let's just delve into it, my friends.
I think you and me got to get into it. At first, like Pete Rose.
Yeah, keep doing that one. But if you guys, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show here, you guys see on the upper left-hand corner from the YouTube page, Bet Parks, and you guys can listen in on today's broadcast. It just went on not too long ago. You guys can catch the recap. If I play the audio, it might come in a little bit lagged, but I do want to play some of the audio because, of course, Jason Myrtetus and with Harry Mays. So listen in before we bring in Harry Mays.
And I'm not saying that to like demean anybody, but you know, the path is like, hey, you did 10 years of beat writing, or you were in the Eagles locker room, or you were in the Flyers locker room or something. And now when you make the transition, now when you make the transition to radio, you're an expert.
I'd just be looking for good conversation and some entertainment value. I want to be entertained, you know, and that's where I kind of thought like the whole business was still so caller driven that I got bored with that. Like,
Now, you guys see there in the bottom left-hand corner, no, that is not Joey Fatone. That is Kevin Kincaid. Do not get it confused. And with that being said, I'm going to bring the man on himself. It is Harry Mays. Harry, first of all, thank you for joining us again. We do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Angel, Mike, Ryan, great to be with you guys.
Thanks for being on,
Harry.
Yeah, man.
Now, Harry,
and by the way, hold on a second, Angel. I heard you say something before you started, or when you started the show. You said you asked Nick Cale to come on tonight, and he was too busy. That is absolute fake news. That guy has absolutely nothing to do. Okay, he's texting me constantly during the day with all his bullshit picks and golf, and asking me questions about the golf tournament. He has nothing to do. Okay, fake news.
I'll make sure I'll get back to him then, because I did reach out. No, on his defense, I did reach out about an hour before the show because I got so busy throughout the whole entire time. And Nick said he was going to come on, so I missed making that connection with him. But I wanted to bring him on because for those who don't know, when Harry Mays was on 97.5 The Fanatic, I did say to Harry, and we were at an event in Jersey, and it was great to met everybody back then. I mean, you were talking about some, good Lord, 10 years or so later, that we're still stay in contact with Harry. But the fun part was that I had the opportunity to tell you, which I will tell the viewers that are watching tonight, that I think even though you work with Tony Bruno and everybody loved Tony Bruno at The Fanatic, and I know he's gone on to do different things he does now into the night with Tony Bruno on Friday nights. If you guys miss it, you can catch him on the No Filter Network. But when they made you guys the morning drive, which I told you and Nick, I thought that was the best tandem duo that 97.5 The Fanatic ever had. And I think it lasted what it seemed like to us about 2 weeks, and then poof, it was gone.
Yeah, it was such a short period of time. I don't even remember it. Okay. And I worked with about 50 different guys during my time at 97.5 through all the incarnations of 950 Sports Talk to 950 ESPN to the 97.5. I had so many different co-hosts, and I know I worked with Nick, but I don't even remember us doing mornings. We must have filled in for like maybe a week or two period of time, maybe when they were changing shows. I don't know, but I appreciate you saying that. I'm glad somebody out there was listening and enjoyed it.
No, listen, it was always good times with you on the radio, and I want people to understand that on this show, particularly tonight, if you guys don't know Harry Mays will tell it just the way it is. There's no buttering up. You're not going to get a participation trophy for listening tonight. None of that stuff. Yeah. What comes out of Harry is all raw. So if you like it, stay tuned. If you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe go watch, I don't know, Dinosaur, that purple dude walking around wherever he's doing right now. So, but Harry, I want for everybody to understand if we roll it back here, because your career, when you first started, and if I remember some of the stories at The Fanatic, I don't think they wanted you to immediately start out as a host. Almost like somewhere in between there. I can't remember if they wanted you to start out basically as a producer / intern, and then you end up telling them exactly what you would have liked to have done instead of them telling you what to do.
Well, yeah, it's funny because I was an update anchor is how I started, which was a great way to get in, and it actually enabled me to be the first live voice on the air for what eventually became 97.5 The Fanatic at 6 a.m. on October 3rd, 2005. My first sports update aired, and that was the first live voice of the then new station. That was when it was launched. So I hold that pretty near and dear to my heart because I'm very proud of what the station is able to accomplish and is still accomplishing. So that's where it started. And but I wanted to do shows. I mean, the update anchor stuff is great, but I really also wanted to do shows, in addition to that. And they had another idea because they were trying to launch a local morning show. So they were looking for somebody to run the board and sort of be the producer and maybe add a little bit of on-air stuff at some point, whatever. So they had me do these trial shows, which they aired on Sunday afternoons. Now, keep in mind, there was no live programming, local live programming on the station at the time on weekends. So nobody is listening to it for live programming. Like if you happen to catch somebody by chance where it was still on their car, preset from Thursday when they were listening to Jody Mack or Friday, whatever, that's when you would catch them. But they're not going there because they know we don't do live. So they're running these trial morning show hosts. Like they're letting them do a trial run. Like a guy would come in from freaking Kansas City and he'd spend the night, and the next day he'd do a 4-hour show in the afternoon, and then he'd fly home, and I'd be the guy that would produce it. And I was so bad intentionally at the board because I didn't want to be the freaking producer. Okay.
Right.
So I fucked this shit up royally. Like I'd push wrong buttons, and I'd interject. I'd have a hot mic when it wasn't supposed to be a hot mic. It was a total freaking train wreck. And I did that intentionally because I'm like, this is not what I came here for. Like, I don't want to do this. Right. The last thing I wanted to do was be the silent guy pushing buttons and booking guests for somebody. I'm like, I'm in my mid-30s here. Like, I came in here to either get on the air or get the fuck out and go back to selling insurance. So I screwed it all up. And I was the worst producer you could have ever imagined. And it worked. It worked.
See, but that's the golden part about it. That's why everybody, the stories that, all right, so you can go to any other like radio program or anything else. The difference between when you can do a podcast, when you can do your own shows, these are the stories that you get to hear the way they're supposed to be said, because as much as we keep everything professional, but at the same time too, it's always good to hear the story the way the story was meant to be said. So when you do it on regular radio, terrestrial radios, everybody knows it.
Yeah, you can't
even now
do that.
Yeah, you can't. Right. And even with XM has gotten pretty much, before it used to be when XM first came out, you could say whatever you wanted to, it was pretty much, a free will.
I think that all ended when Tony Bruno and I got fired a couple of years ago. I think that's when all those rules changed too.
I think so. You're absolutely right. But, it's fun though. It's the stories that I love to hear that you normally wouldn't be able to hear anywhere else. So I do appreciate it, because I heard bits and pieces of it before, but it's always great to hear it again. But, now going back to your 97.5 The Fanatic days and as you're coming through, you're working with different co-hosts. They're still trying to put pieces together. I know before they end up selling it to the Beasley Media Group, it seemed like everyone had tuned into the Fanatic more than they had done at WIP at one point, because before WIP became FM, before making that switch, it's just the Fanatic had the edge at that point.
Right.
And I think the lineup that they had is they were creatively putting guys, together in place and ended up making it, really well. Now, of course, it's turned again where WIP now ends up being on top of the food chain, I guess you want to say it that way. And the Fanatic is still trying to figure out, okay, who are we going to have, especially now with the drive time with Mikey Miss being gone. Yeah. So all these different changes that happen. But during your career there at the Fanatic, if you can remember probably one of the better interviews that you had, whether it was a good one and or a bad one, or maybe one that you just didn't want to have, but the show told you, well, you know what, Harry, you have no other choice. You got to interview this person. What was the most collective one that you can remember that stands out of your whole entire career at the Fanatic?
I just thought of one because I booked it myself. This was when I was on in the evening with Jamie Yannicone. And I don't know if Rob Ellis was still with us at the time, but he had been on the show. It was the Sports Fanatics, which aired at night after Jody went off. We were on from 7 to 10 in the evenings, and that lasted for, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years. And I booked Bruce Jenner, who was Bruce Jenner at the time.
Right. And
he's talking, and he was a great guest. He's a great talker. And we're talking about, the Olympics and the TV shows. And this was when the Kardashians was kind of just sort of getting going. This was back in, I want to say 06, 07 time period. And it came up where, because I told him that I was, it's kind of hot on Kim. I thought, man, how do you deal with that, with her running around the house, with hardly any clothes on? Right. And, and we started talking about all this like stuff that ended up morphing into a sort of a sexual nature. And now knowing the way things turned out, like I look back on that as kind of a weird conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like, pretty weird, And I talked to a lot of like crazy people. I mean, Will Ferrell I booked Will Ferrell one time. We had a tremendous conversation about, college football and movies and music and all kinds of things. Those were the kind of conversations that I remember the most, because they weren't necessarily all sports. In fact, a lot of it wasn't sports.
And the one thing, when I went back to your Fanatic days and the day that we ended up having the go-kart challenge race, the one thing I do specifically remember, you did talk to like some of us when we were out there, and not as much as far as taking pictures, but when we were together prior to the races, coming down to the qualifications and then get down to the final race,
Yeah.
I thought the best part was, and I used to hear it from people from the Fanatic, was when the show was over, you were out. Like that was it. Harry Mays is closed and you're done. I thought the funniest thing, and I still remember to this day, was as soon as the event was done, like basically it was 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Everybody looked for Harry Mays. Harry was like, what time is it?
I'm in my car.
I'm out.
I'm already on Route 55 headed back towards Philadelphia.
Yeah. And that was, to me, that was the best part because you stayed true to yourself. That's who you were. It was like, everybody else hung around. We get it. We understand it. But it was just funny to watch you take off.
There's another one though, I just remembered, and I can't believe I forgot it. Belladonna, the porn star, I had live in studio, and she was pretty popular back in 06, 07 at that time period. And I arranged with the guy that was her handler to bring her in studio. I said, it's the only way we're going to do it is if she's live in studio. Brought her in. She couldn't have been greater. She was nice. She was the best. And she did anything that I asked her to do. And literally by the end of this conversation, we had her on for about an hour. And I never ran it by my program director because he never would have allowed it. But the other studio where the news anchor would sit is a big glass wall. There were 15 guys in there with their faces up against the wall, like they had never seen or heard anything like this. It was like a Howard Stern kind of situation, to be honest.
Right.
And I was just sort of the orchestrator of this whole thing. I mean, there was a large piece of large vegetable involved, and you can just use your imagination. It was incredible, and it was great radio, and it was totally off the cuff. Nothing was pre-planned. And that to me was some of the most exciting stuff that I ever did.
See, but again, that stuff you want to be able to get it from anywhere else because some people gamble and they take off that gamble and they hope that it ends up coming out on the better side. Some radio shows and some programs they've tried to gamble and it's failed miserably depending on the guest. Now today, thanks to everything that's going on in the world, you have no idea what you're going to end up getting because you're going to get either the extreme far left of what they believe it's going to be right, or it's going to be so either Mickey Moused and or pushed down your throat so much that sometimes you just tune out because you don't know what to listen to anymore. And I think that's why there's so many different radio personalities that have gone now to doing their own version, like their own podcast and everything else, because at least you can stay to the person who you've always been. Right. Because the tough part is, and especially for you guys who've been on radio, is that you turn around and you know what you've been doing for many, many years. No one should control exactly how you say it, the way you say it, none of that stuff. But now it's come down to, it's become so, I want to say almost like mushy. Yeah.
Homogenized.
Yep. It's a shame because that's the way I remember listening to you guys. I mean, I'm going way back. I'm only 21 years old. I keep lying to myself every single day, but going way back into radio in the 70s and 80s, it was fun because you heard real raw stories, and now you just can't hear them anymore. And then if you do, it comes with a consequence, or you have to explain yourself, and that to me takes away from that person of who they are. So I know that's my little 2 cents when it comes to the new modern stuff. But I just like it when people just remain who they are. I mean, you got Ryan once again with the cheap seats over there, who can't even afford to even put us in a luxury box, but we get it because it's Ryan. As I make fun of him all the time. But no, it's appreciative. And I think that's why we appreciate when you guys still hang around. Tony's still doing his thing, obviously, again, with the No Filter Network. But it's good to see that people just don't change because they feel, okay, I have to become modern with the times. Yeah. If you are who you've been for many years, remain the course because that's what made you popular. That's what made you, that known personality. And that's what we want to continue to hear. I try to say the same thing to the Godfather up there, but he just, him and Howie Roseman, they got this big love affair that I have no idea why in the world, but he's got a question as well. So I'm going to leave it off because I've been rambling your ear long enough. So Godfather, take it away.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, glad to be here again.
Just wanted to dive in little Sixers. I'm just throwing this out there to you. I mean, the front office, Chris Heck resigning there for 9 years. Is there any speculation to that or, leading to the off season within the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I just, got wind of that today as most people did. I don't really know what to read about that because I never really got involved with that sort of that corporate executive side of the 76ers. I sort of, just tried to think about it from a basketball point of view. These owners of this organization, they're involved in a lot of different stuff, a lot of different teams, a lot of different, political stuff. I have no idea what the situation was with Chris Heck. Does it mean like things are, about to blow up? I don't know. I don't think Doc Rivers is going anywhere, as much as many of us would like to move on from him, because I've been very disappointed with his tenure here, as many people have, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't know what Chris Heck leaving means. Who takes his place? Is it going to be, somebody of a, more of a basketball kind of guy, or more of a, the corporate side like Chris Heck was? I don't really know. I don't read too much into it to answer your question. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Also, do you see, Daryl Morey having his work cut out for him?
Yeah.
Here in the off season, all these trade rumors floating around: Tobias Harris and T. Steibel, bringing in the Donovan Mitchell or.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot of people just putting names together because it's that time of year. But think about Matisse Thybulle. Think about his stock right now. If you go back about 3 or 4 months, you'd poll most 76ers fans. I bet 7 or 8 out of 10 would say, there's no way you can involve Matisse Thybulle in any trade. Now you look what happened with the whole situation where he couldn't go to Toronto and his play really fell off after that. It would be like, man, let's throw him in anything. Who cares? It's crazy how just a couple of months, everything changes as far as a viewpoint of a player in this league, and especially with this team. Wasn't it unbelievable just to see the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler? Because I loved Jimmy Butler before he was here and when he was here. Because to me, he was kind of like me. He was a guy that goes in there and stirs shit up and holds people accountable and goes in there and does his work and demands that you do yours. And outside of that, we got no issue. But if you're not going to be doing the same thing that I do, we got a problem. And I like guys like that. Okay. And some people don't. A lot of people don't. They makes them very uncomfortable. But God damn it, wouldn't you like to have seen Jimmy Butler still here with Joel Embiid and whoever else?
Oh, no deal.
I mean, man, that's a team.
It is. It's a shame too, because you're absolutely right. I would love to see Jimmy stay here, but and I don't know, would there be a hint of him coming back around again? Probably not, because I'm pretty sure he's gonna stay with Miami. But you're right. Jimmy made everybody accountable for, and I don't know if that was something that drove the Sixers brass absolutely insane or not. But it is a shame, because he should have been here. He took Miami, as deep as he possibly could. I'm pretty sure he's going to be back there again come next year. Mm-hmm. We're going to see what's going to happen. And I know people keep saying about Doc Rivers, and yes, some people want him out of town. I personally would like to see Doc here for another year, which again, the Sixers have said they're going to bring him back for another year.
Yeah, he's coming back.
Yeah. So I just want to see what they're going to end up doing as far as building him around. But Fuji, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to turn over to Ryan.
Yeah, okay. Harry, again, thanks for Harry and I have something in common. We both did radio in Allentown.
Oh, yeah? Which station were you at? Were the same one I was?
1999, there was a station called WTKZ. It was sports.
TKZ.
And then I did.
Do you remember the call, like the number? Because I was 1230 and 1320 were the AM stations. I think one of those is it. Yeah.
And I did a 2-month stint at WZZO.
Oh, there you go. The rock station. Yeah, I love that station.
So 2 questions for you again. Thanks for coming on. One's going to be in reference to the Phillies. I said that firing Joe Girardi really isn't going to make that much of a difference.
Right.
The last 11 years, Harry, the Phillies have been mediocre at best. Mm-hmm. What's it going to take for this organization to unsuck?
That's a great question. And I don't know the exact answer, but for the last, take it 11 years, you could probably go even back further, because the core of that great team, or those great teams that ended up being in the World Series in 08 and 09, were all drafted like in the late 90s to early 2000s. And a lot of it, I guess, was Ed Wade. You can go back to Pat Burrell, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Cole Hamels, on and on and on. Those guys, that whole core was drafted and developed, and they identified talent and they developed the talent. And that is what has been missing with this organization for over a decade, at least over a decade, because they allowed that core to get old, which a lot of teams do because they're loyal to it, because it brought, the greatest, run maybe in franchise history. I get it. But you got to continue to identify talent and draft it and develop it. And they don't do it. And, all these number one draft picks, I mean, you look at some of these guys, where are they? Alec Boehm, is he a real player? He can hit a little bit, but is he a real player? I don't know. Mickey Moniak, all these guys that they've drafted that are supposed to be these great players, and it just doesn't happen. And therefore, your minor league system is viewed as crap by the other organizations. So they're not going to make trades with you for your minor league guys. So therefore, you got to go out and overspend in free agency and keep bringing guys in. And I love Bryce Harper. Don't get me wrong. I wanted him here. He's a lightning rod guy that you can really build around, and he's your franchise player. I get all that. But then they had to go out, they had to get Raul Muto. They had to get Castellanos. I mean, it's on and on and on. They got to keep buying players because they can't develop them. And that's the core issue. And how do you fix that? I don't know. I'm not a baseball savant, but that's the real problem. They got to get somebody in here to fix the developmental system and the drafting and the scouting. To me, that's where it all, and that's a long rebuild, but that's where it's got to happen.
Harry, just to touch on Joe Girardi, obviously, the one taking the fall.
Yeah.
I believe there's an up blame to go around with Dombrowski bringing in Familia, Brad Hand, a couple other guys he brought in that bullpen. And, the players got to take accountable for it as well.
Yeah, they do. I mean, but Girardi, I was disappointed with him just because he was a name and everybody, said, yeah, we got to go get Joe Girardi, and his name carried a lot of weight. And then you find out that there was there was bad communication between he and the players. I mean, like, how does that happen? How does that happen in a baseball team? Right. When you're spending 6 months practically every day together at the ballpark, whether it's home or away, how is there a lack of communication? That to me sounds, ridiculous. He just never had any energy. I never sensed any kind of fire at all. And we love fire in this town. Okay. You got to show me a little Larry Boa every once in a while when things aren't going well. Right. I mean, that never happened. And it's crazy to me because I don't think it's sustainable. But the minute he gets whacked and his underling, Rob Thompson, takes over, and I don't know Rob Thompson from, Jerry Thompson, but this team scores 26 runs in 3 games against the dog shit team in the Angels. Okay, let's call it what it is. But they start hitting the baseball and start beating the crap out of whoever they're playing. And I'm like, there might be something to this. Like, man, we were just looking for a way to bust out. Now, I don't think this is going to continue. I don't think they're good enough for reasons that I stated earlier. But isn't it kind of weird how the minute, Mr. Girardi, the Joe Girardi, Mr. Baseball gets handed his walking papers, the team comes alive. Right. Weird.
Harry, just real quick here. I'm going to switch it up just a little bit because I am the national correspondent.
Oh, that's right. It says it on your on the title there for you.
You going national?
You're a golf enthusiast just like I am.
Yeah.
I said during the winter months when the Phil Mickelson thing hit with the Live Tour.
Yeah.
I said that it was just going to continue to get worse and worse. Now we see golfers defecting from the PGA Tour. The most recent is Dustin Johnson. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to turn into an all-out war between the PGA Tour and the Live Tour. I don't know how you see it. Yeah. What's your take on this whole situation?
Well, I just look at this thing and I say it's more golf to watch and it's more golf to bet on. So I'm okay with that. Is the crew of players that they have in this first event, 48 players, it's not exactly a who's who. It's kind of a couple of has-beens, and Dustin Johnson is kind of at that point in his career where I think he knows he's in the Hall of Fame. He's won his majors. He's been on Ryder Cups. Now he just wants to go out and make as much money as possible. And I can't begrudge anybody for that. Okay. If somebody's going to offer you $125 million or $250 million, whatever it is guaranteed for he and Phil Mickelson, I mean, who am I to say you turn that down because a couple of golf writers, are all bent about, the moral aspect of this. I mean, there's dirty money that is floating throughout this entire globe, including coming from our country. Okay. So if you start really parsing this out, the NBA, what about the NBA and their association with China? And I know there's this term called whataboutism that everybody gets excited about. Well, but it is what about, this, because there's dirty stuff going on everywhere. But you tell me that you're going to go to your wife and your kids and say, you know what, I was offered $125 million up front to go play golf in a couple of these tournaments that are sponsored by some really bad guys. And they're going to go like, Dad, you turned them down? Or, hon, you said no? Like, think about it from their perspective.
Yeah.
No
so
doubt.
I don't, if it was me, obviously I would really want the money. And the only thing that I would probably be unsettled about is like, A, am I going to get it all? Okay. Because I don't know if it all comes up front. That's a lot of money. And B, what else do I owe them? Like, what else are they going to come ask me for later? That's the one thing that kind of sits in my head, but that's just me. I would go take the money and I'd go play the 8 tournaments, team tournaments, and cash the checks. But yeah, there's going to be a war, and there's going to be lawyers, and there's going to be all kinds of hand wringing about whether this guy should be able to play in this major, or, this guy can never play in a Ryder Cup team or a President's Cup team and all that. And the thing that saddens me about it is I love the traditions of golf and the history of certain tournaments and, at certain venues and things like that. That's part of what draws me to it. And this live thing, although it has great money and it will be played on some great golf courses, has no tradition. There will never be tradition. It's all just about money. And there's a part of me that says, yeah, you take the money, but then that's all it's about. And that kind of saddens me, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, because the USGA has come out and said that they may not follow suit with the PGA. It kind of hard for me to believe that, but it'll be interesting to see how the USGA is going to handle this leading up to the event next week.
Well, they're going to allow these guys to play in the US Open, the guys that are qualified. That's already been said. I think it came out today. And if you're Dustin Johnson, for example, since you guys brought him up, and Phil Mickelson for that matter, because they both won the Masters. The Masters, you can play in the Masters until you're dead. Okay, if you want to play. Once you've won it, you can play in it however long you want. They will always welcome you back. I don't see that changing. So Dustin will also be able to play the Masters. Phil will be able to play the Masters. Sergio will be able to play the Masters. The Opens are open to me. So if you qualify or you've won, to me, you're going to probably be able to play in those too. The PGA Championship and the Players Championship, which isn't a major, but it's a huge tournament, they probably, maybe they can rule these guys out of there. But I think, they'll get lawyers to fight all this stuff. It's going to be really interesting and hairy, and I don't know where it all ends up. But to me, I'm going to watch it all because that's what I do. It's going to give me other stuff to bet on.
It's funny you mentioned Sergio Garcia, and for the first time in a long time, I'm surprised he even saying anything. It was I think it was Ryan about 2 months ago or so, the last tournament he was on, where he had mentioned they wanted him to speed up the play, and he was saying to himself like, why? What's going on? He said, "Boy, I can't wait to leave here," which is kind of surprising because Sergio, for the most part, never said anything back to the tour.
He's a petulant asshole. I mean, he has been in his entire career. I mean, this guy has spit in the cup after he takes his ball out. I think it actually happened in Saudi Arabia. He spit into the cup. I mean, he's done some really stupid, and he whacked the bunker because he couldn't get out of the sand, and he starts acting like a crazy kid. He's an asshole, and everybody, he really is. If it weren't for his association with Seve Ballesteros, the great and classy Seve Ballesteros, people would beat the shit out of him.
He's not. He is not one of the more popular guys on.
Yeah, and he's a great player, and nobody brings the club in the way he does. I mean, I would love to be able to hit one iron the way he hits all of them. Trust me, but he's an asshole. Yeah.
But at least it's good to know because I don't follow the tour as much as like Ryan does, for example, our national correspondent. So
am I wrong, Ryan?
Sergio can be, believe me, he's tough to take, and he's always been.
Yeah,
he projects himself in front of the camera a little bit differently than behind the scenes. And I'm not. Harry thinks that way. I think that way. There's a lot of guys behind the scenes that are professional golfers that think that way.
Yeah.
So.
Not to interrupt, but I just remember Chi Rodriguez after he would sink the hole, he'd be like this, and then
he was a showman. With the sword.
It was great.
He was.
And I'll tell you something else, Harry. Phil has really alienated a lot of people.
I know he has
with his comments, and I don't know what kind of damage control he can continue to do. I don't know if he'll ever be able to fully recover. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll ever be able to fully recover. I mean, this day and age, people will take sides and they're not going to forgive, or the comments and whatnot. And Phil's rubbed a lot of guys the wrong way. But to Phil Mickelson, to me, without being the greatest champion, and he's not, but he's one of the greatest, is one of the most compelling sports figures in my lifetime. And that means from watching him, and I've said this on radio back in the day when people were like, why are you even talking about golf? My program director's head would explode when I'd bring up a name of a golfer. But I was like, he's one of the most compelling sports figures in my lifetime. And I've had the pleasure of witnessing so much greatness in sports when you talk about the four majors. But when this guy is on TV, you have no idea what he's going to do. He can make something, simple look like a total train wreck, and he can make something where you're like, I don't know how the hell he's going to get out of this, and he does it. He's amazing, and I've always appreciated him. And he said some stupid things, and I know he feels badly about that, and he's sort of taking stock in himself right now, which I think was a good idea. But Phil is a showman, and Phil has always been a showman with a whole lot of swagger. And a lot of times that brings, a lot of flack.
Now, an interesting picture I'm going to bring up here. What happened to John Daly?
He lost control of his weight a long time ago, and I don't think he gives zero fucks, which is one of the reasons why I love him so much. But there was a time, he had cancer. He had, I think it was bladder cancer not too long ago. And he started growing the beard, apparently, and he wasn't going to shave it until he beat the bladder cancer.
Right.
I think he has beaten the bladder cancer, and I think he's just fallen in love with this new character that the beard has given him. So he's going to keep it. And, dude, the guy owns it. I mean, look at that haircut back in 1991 when he won the PGA. He had one of the greatest mullets of all time. I mean, he's awesome. Would you want him any other way?
No,
I wouldn't want him all cleaned up. That's great.
Yeah. No, it's
seriously.
It's funny to me because when he was, what threw me off was, I ended up tuning in about 3 weeks ago when he was on. It was like a small tournament, something going on. And it took me like a bit to kind of look, is that really John Daly?
Yeah.
But you're right. He doesn't care. And that's the fun part about John Daly, because after a while he was like, you know what? I'm just going to do me. And everybody who loves the way I do myself, it's the best thing ever. So compared to that mullet, to again, back to where he looked like Santa Claus sitting there on the golf cart. I mean, there's nothing better. And for those who are listening to the audio side of the podcast here, if you guys Google John Daly and you look at the pictures the way we are right now, it's a night and day John Daly from the mullet to his prior existence now. So it's hilarious.
And I followed him at the Greater Greensboro Open. I think it was 1992, I want to say, because I lived down in the Carolinas then. And we went over, and me and my buddies were like, man, we got to go follow John Daly. So we got up into that group and we followed him the whole day. And literally this guy, he's got one of the most incredible hand to mouth habits I've ever seen, because he's got a cigarette in his hand and his mouth at all times, a bag of M&Ms or a Diet Coke. I swear to God, we followed him. We followed him for like 13 holes. So it was like 3 hours. Okay. 4, almost 4 hours. This guy nonstop in his hand, either at a butt, he'd put the butt down. Caddy would give him his club, hit his club, take some M&Ms, pop them in his mouth, Diet Coke and a cigarette, and go to his next shot the whole day. The whole day.
It's
Unbelievable.
amazing.
Yeah.
He looks like Jeff Daniels in Dumb and Dumber.
He does. He really, minus like the top hat.
Yeah.
Remember, you wear the top hat and the tails.
That's a great comparison. I didn't even
he's
think about
great.
that one.
He's great.
Listen, Joey B, who's obviously a major fan of the show here. I know he gets around to all different networks. He said he did miss you. What's up? But he's also asking, have you been watching in the USFL? And by the way, Joey B, congrats to your Avs as they made themselves now into the Stanley Cup Finals.
Oh yeah, the Avs. That was a pretty impressive sweep of the Edmonton Oilers. I watched every game of that series. No, I haven't watched one lick of the USFL.
Yeah.
But I understand the Birmingham Stallions have a pretty good team because they play all their games at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Home field advantage.
I didn't watch it either. Now, Harry, it makes you want to think, because how successful is that league going to be? First, I know they wanted to, I guess, control the money, whatever it was. So they decided to play in Alabama for the season. But I just don't see it taking off. And then next year you enter now the XFL with The Rock. And he's been wanting to make sure when he brings it back out, it's supposed to be a better product than it was. Yeah. There's been no leaks, no nothing. Like we have no, it's so tight-lipped at this point. Is it going to be successful the third time around?
Yeah, I don't think so. And it might last longer maybe than the first two times. I don't know. But they need some of that Saudi money to keep this thing alive, if you ask me. See, that's the difference between the USFL's reboots and this live thing. The Saudis don't run out of money. Okay.
Right.
These other leagues do.
Right. No, that's true. And one thing that I did learn this year, so when I was broadcasting for the Tampa Bay Titans, the professional basketball league, you touched on it a little while ago, that as far as the guys that make more money playing overseas than they do here. I mean, you do get LeBron James, of course, he's a billionaire off the NBA. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows this. But a lot of these guys, they say, you go over there and sometimes the competition is a little more stiffer than what it is here in the U.S., but the contracts end up being bigger. And so a lot of them end up finishing out the career or even start the career there and then don't even bother coming back stateside because they like playing overseas versus playing here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Plus the women are pretty good too over there, but that's another thing. But here, getting back to the golf side of that, this live tour, there's a guy named Peter Uihlein who was an American player and played over in the European tour, has made his bones over there, and has been kicking it around and but still scuffling around. He's now a captain of one of these teams in this event coming up this weekend. All right. Now, if they've players over here that are in the top 30, okay, let's just say in the top 30 that aren't involved in the live tour, start seeing that Peter Uihlein is making guaranteed money of millions of dollars to just basically play in these events. They're going to be like, dude, I could give him 5 shots a side and I could beat his ass. I'm going over there and I'm getting some of that money. And that's where I think this is going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, because some of these guys are going to be saying, dude, I could beat that guy, after a 12-pack, and he's making $4 million this week, and I'm over here, trying to make the cut to make, $130,000. This is bullshit.
That's true.
Right?
I mean, see, and now I'm going to have to say, tune in. Thanks to you guys. Now I'm going to have to take a look and see what's going on amongst everything else I end up doing. But to take a look, because it seems really interesting. And it's all great points, because it's really interesting to see what's going to happen with that entire league. But I mean, then again, we see everything that goes on here as far as stateside. And then I guess to bring a little baseball here, in case some folks want to hear, Joe Madden is the next now scapegoat for the Angels. Not surprising, because they end up going to losing streak. And then you have Ohani, who said, oh, don't be surprised if I request a trade. You've only been with the team for a year. And you're talking about you can't go through a losing streak and you want to go for a trade now. So, and it's dumb to say, because I know people are going to say it. I don't see the Phillies making any kind of pursuit for Joe Madden here in Philadelphia, because they see what's going on right now with the interim manager. Yeah. Does Joe Madden land somewhere else, or he decides to say, you know what, I'm done. I won one and I'm good?
Joe Madden would be great on television. I
would
like be one of those guys, Ryan, whether he's in studio or whether he's, probably in studio, it's a little bit of an easier job than going out and actually doing the games every week. And so, but I think he'd be brilliant. He's very entertaining. He loves his red wine. He's a very, he's sort of a Renaissance man, even though he came up in the coal regions of Pennsylvania, believe it or not. But yeah, I'd love to sit down and talk. Like I always said that I'd love to talk baseball with Charlie Manuel for take the train ride from Philly to Washington when they go play the Nationals and sit there and eat peanuts and drink a couple of beers and talk baseball with Charlie Manuel would be a fascinating 2 hours or whatever. Joe Madden's one of those guys too, although I don't think it would be peanuts and beer. It'd be like red wine and maybe, some ceviche or something. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, he's a fascinating guy. He's got a lot to offer as far as baseball is concerned. The Angels are never going to be the Dodgers, no matter how much money they spend.
Right.
And it's probably come to an end. And if he gets fired, you know what? So what? He's got tons of money, and some TV network's going to pay him.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
when
It's a great gig.
When Charlie comes on, because Charlie's coming on to our show, so when Charlie Manuel comes on, I'll make sure you come back because
absolutely.
I tell you this much: when he was down for the meet and greet with Philly Sports Trips, and by the way, thank you to our sponsors, PhillySportsTrips.com. They have upcoming trip to DC for the DCU. They're not called the Commanders, whatever. DCU as we refer to them here. But when he comes back, I'll have you on there because he had spoken to Harry every single person on the meet and greet, and you're talking about some 250 to 300 folks, and he went around, greeted everybody,
I believe,
told them stories. I mean, it was the most amazing time. Then he gave us 35 minutes of probably the most intense interview that you can imagine when he talked about the 40 plus years he's been involved with baseball and everything else, and you could sit there all day long. It's like the old time, like when you turn on the radio before, you would sit in front of it, you would hear it. It was the same way with Charlie that day down here.
Baseball was good.
Yeah, that's true. But when he comes on, though, I'll make sure I reach back out to you to let you know to come on. But yeah, Charlie's going to be coming up amongst some other people. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be a fantastic show. I can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Harry,
yeah.
Just to not to interrupt, I want to just throw out to you, with the Mike Missinelli and 97.5 parting ways. Wanted to see if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the end of an era, man. I mean, Mike, Mike has done this at the highest level for 30 years. I mean, he started in IP, I think, in the early to mid 90s with Steve-O, where he was sort of Steve-O was the veteran guy, the sage radio guy, and Mike was coming out of the newspaper realm, writing a lot about college basketball for the Inquirer. I used to love reading Mike when I was in college. And Steve-O sort of taught him the ropes, and Mike quickly picked it up because he's a very intelligent man, and took it and made it his own, and it became his own brand really quickly. And he was one of the best that's ever done it in this town, not only in this town but in the country, if you ask me, because I know everybody who's done this. And the sad part is that a lot of times you can't write your own ending. And that's what really kind of would upset me. And I'm sure it upsets him, that you do all this for, the two big stations in town. He was also involved in rock and roll radio. He did the morning show on MMR for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was entertained by that show too. I went up to New York and did some sports talk in New York during, when he was let go, I think by MMR or WIP, I forget, before he came back to the Fanatic, before we brought him back to Philly radio. And you think about that career and, all that was done and to have it just all end on one day where, he comes in, apparently. I wasn't listening at the time, but, because I don't really listen a whole lot anymore. I got to be honest with you. And it has nothing to do with any personality or anything. I just kind of do other things. But I heard that around 4:00, he just sort of mentioned, like, today's my last day. This is my last show. And that, to me, is incredible. Like, he should have had at least a week where they bring in all the great guests from all the years, whether it be this station or MMO, whatever. That should have been a really produced piece of radio for at least a week. They could have gotten great ratings out of it, and it would have been a great send-off to a guy who has had a tremendous career. Forget about what you might think of him politically, because he got very political in the last couple of years, as some guys have, and I think that might have been to his detriment. But he was brilliant on the radio. And, forged so many relationships. And it would have been just so great to hear a lot of those people call back in and just sort of reminisce. I mean, we love reminiscing in this town. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he should have had a send-off is all I'm saying, because the guy was tremendous, and you may have disagreed with him 90% of the time. Trust me, that's good. That's what he wanted. He was really good at that. I was a guy that never really thought about it that much, but I kind of liked being liked. He liked being disliked, I think. And there's an art to that. He's going to be missed. And it's sad the way it ended so abruptly.
I said this on the cheap seats last week, Harry, when it came to the Missinelli thing. Look, you and I have been in radio. We know how cutthroat it is.
Sure.
There's a flavor of the week 1 week, and then 5 months later they let you go. So, and I said, his original contract, I think, ran out in December of last year, and then they extended him through the spring this year, from what I heard.
Yeah.
That should have been like the first writing on the wall.
Sure.
And it almost seemed to me like they didn't want to give him a long-term contract, taking the chances that they had already taken on him through the years. And I think it finally, look, he got emotional. And I said last week, you could tell this isn't what he wanted.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they gave him Memorial Day weekend, and then whammo, he went in on Tuesday last week, and they hit him with it. So,
yeah. Well, I don't know if they hit him with it on Tuesday or when they hit him with it, but I that was the end of the month, and that might have been the last day of the contract. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not privy to that, but there's a life cycle to everything, and I mean, Angelo is leaving now, and he's been flirting with leaving for years, and a lot of these guys, they're just addicted to it. Like I kind of feel for them. Some of the guys, and I'm not saying Mike's that guy, but like an Angelo, I don't know if he knows what to do outside of being Angelo Cataldi and doing a morning show and going to bed at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. Like, I don't know that a lot of these guys have really enjoyed themselves. They're so addicted to the business, and it consumes you, man. Like, if you're at that level, it consumes you. And I don't know what that's like, because I've always been a guy that preferred to enjoy myself in addition to doing my work. I worked to enjoy myself. I didn't work to work and work to be something. Like, I used work as a means to go have fun.
Right.
And, like some of these guys, I think that, they don't know how to have fun. They gotta learn to have a little bit of fun, because at some point it all ends. You know what I mean?
It does. One second,
so,
a lot of people, how many guys have been like my dad, for example? You had 33 years in the military, then you get out and you look at the world like, what am I supposed to do now? It's a whole different world.
You got to readjust.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right, because it's tough. I mean, all them years of radio, the same way, if you've been a sports writer for years, same thing. You're used to a certain schedule for 20 plus years. And the day you decide that, that's it, I'm putting the pen down, I'm done. Like, what do you do next? So it's a big major adjustment, and it's going to be the same way with WIP. Yeah.
It's like my dad was, worked for 40 some odd years in the same industry with basically the same company all his life, and retired. And 3 years later, he was dead. So I look at that. I look back on that and say, that's a shame. And I don't want that to be me, so I'm sort of living my retirement, as I go. My wife hates that, but,
another, Ray Dittinger retiring too.
Legend. Yeah, absolute legend.
Big time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I'll tell you about Ray. Ray was a guy that I wanted to get on my show when I was in Allentown. One of the first, maybe the first or second year that we were in Allentown. I wanted to get him on to talk Eagles. There was something going on, as there always is with the Eagles. But I said to the guy that I was working with, I think it was Tom Fallon, who was the program director, I said, I think I'm going to try to get Ray Dittinger on and talk about this. He goes, you can get him on? I said, well, I don't know. I'm going to try. So I got his phone number, and I called him. And when you call Ray, you call his home. Like, he didn't have a cell phone. So he called his office line. And sure enough, he calls me back, and he doesn't know me from Adam. Okay. And I said, hey, I'm Harry Mays. I'm doing this sports talk show up in the Lehigh Valley on the ESPN affiliate. Would love to get you on, someday this week, between 4:30 and 6:30, because we're on 4 to 7 to talk about the Eagles. And he said, sure. How's tomorrow? And I'm like, tomorrow's great. What time? And we booked the time, and the guy came on, and he couldn't have been more gracious. Gave us 15 to 20 minutes, and it was awesome. And it really, it was like a big thing for me at that time, at that point in my career, my young career. And I'll never forget that. And that's the kind of guy Ray was, or Ray is. I shouldn't say was. He is.
Yeah, I did a morning show with Tommy Fallon.
Oh, yeah.
For about a month. Yeah.
I bet he's still playing the same bumper music that he was playing back with me in 2003, 4, and 5.
He is.
Good Lord.
Oh, it's great.
Now, Harry, as you're talking about Lehigh Valley, doesn't Merrill Reese own a station?
He owned one in Bucks County. I don't know if he still owns it. It was WBC. WBCB. BCB. And I think it was like near Levittown or something.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was somewhere up there.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of, before we end up signing off here, and Harry, we can go on all night because it's always fun to have you on. I know your time is always critical and valuable, but we do always appreciate you coming on here. But as you talk about contracts and then guys going into the booth, how about Fuji's other best friend, TB12? Once he's done, how about 10 years? 10 years and that amazing deal they put together for him, and the guy's never broadcast a game in his life.
Is he the greatest or what? I mean, he is just awesome. The only thing that I'm pissed off at him now about is that on that stupid, ridiculous golf event that they broadcast last week, the match, all right, which I'm done with these matches, all right, I've been done with them. But he's wearing his freaking hat backwards and an untucked shirt. I'm like, dude, you are setting the wrong example. I'm tuck your freaking shirt in and turn your hat around. Okay. This isn't the local Muni. All right, Tommy.
Exactly. No, it's true, but it's amazing to me. Some of these guys, man, where they can just walk away from the game and that's it. And today it was funny because just before we came on, I'm listening here to Fox 13 locally. And it's over. Well, Tom Brady, he didn't want to speak to the media today. Well, if you guys ever notice, in the 25 years now of the NFL, he never talks during OTAs when he first take off because he's focused upon what he wants to do. Yeah. And it's just funny to me because you did, like, the reporters, you guys should know this by now. It's been 2 years now he's been with the team. Yeah. He just came off of it. And then you hear their funny little slogans where, we wonder what he did during his retirement. Well, not much. Obviously,
he had
just
fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the most fun that he had, honest to God, was the boat parade down here because we've seen 2 now with the Lightning, possibly maybe 3 if they can, pull it off. But that, I didn't make it down there as much as Fuji likes to, bust my chops here. Saying I was down there with
the Tampa Bay shirt on.
Yeah, well, because I'm down here.
I got a house down there, man. That's part of my hood too. I lived in Tampa for a little while. Still have a house near there.
But he has a Tom Brady jersey in the back.
I do not. Listen, for the 1,000th time, I don't have a Tom Brady jersey, but thanks for playing it. That doesn't happen. But, it's funny down here because these guys, they don't get it. And then it's, as much as I love the area, it's been fun since I moved from Philly, but they don't like the sports down here. It's not like it is, I guess, back in Philly or anywhere else where they don't get into it as much. And then the reporters here, it's like they're disconnected. If they don't have a teleprompter, with some people that we see on TV just about on a daily basis, if the teleprompter is not there, they have no idea what they want to talk about.
Well, first of all, people aren't as connected to it because it's always 85 degrees and gorgeous down there. Okay, so that's one reason. The other thing, though, you got Rob Motti down there who lives down there now. Right. He also emigrated from Philadelphia to the Tampa area. He knows what he's doing. Okay, that's one guy that's in there every day that knows what's going on. So you should get him on one of these times.
No, he's a good friend of this.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's been. We go back and forth just about almost on a daily basis.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
So wanted to make sure.
Oh yeah, no, we end up talking a lot. He's fun. I can't wait for the NFL season to start because I think he's going to try and do what he did back in Philly on his own, kind of like his own show. So he wants to do something where he wants to pick that back up again. And as much as Fuji is going to drive him nuts, but unfortunately he is going to be talking a lot of Bucks talk because he is assigned to the AP, and that's what he wanted to do, is talk Bucks talk. But listen, Harry, don't let him fool you. I know we're coming up on it, but don't let him fool you because he did mention at one point, who was the Dallas Cowboy there that you had, the running back? Emmett Smith, I believe, was the jersey that you had.
Dallas Cowboy jersey.
Yeah, don't let him fool you, Harry. He's
there, Brady in the back. He probably got every color, black, The red.
No.
The white. I got all the Patriots. Wait, your sister lives up in New England. Probably.
Yeah, that's right. And I was never, ever, never a Bostonian fan.
Hell out of here.
Yeah, never a Bostonian fan. Even the years I lived up there for high school, my high school years. Now, listen, I was up there from 85 to 88 when they were horrible. And even then, I never turned to the Red Sox, never turned to the Celtics, never turned to the Bruins, and never turned to the Patriots.
Jersey.
Yeah.
I bet the Celtics in the series.
Yeah.
Man.
We'll see what's going to happen with the Celtics, but it's going to be interesting to see how that series is going to turn out. Because again, Golden State had seen right after that run that he had. It's not easy to get back to on any major level. It's so hard to get back there again. Phillies are taking it now from 2008. Granted, the Eagles haven't been that far away from 2017, and we'll see what happens there. And then obviously with Dougie P down there in Jacksonville and Duval County.
That's going to be interesting. They come to the link, and what date is it, Ryan and Mike? You know when they're
it's early October.
It's early in the season. Yeah. I look forward to that.
September, early October.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Duval,
it's going to be good, but listen, we want to thank, of course, a couple of the sponsors here before we end up wrapping up the show. And again, with Harry Mays, it's always a great time with Harry. And if you guys just replay this back over and over again, the audio download will be available as soon as the show's over, but play it over and over again for the best radio and / podcast that you want to hear, because it's always a great time with Harry. But again, you guys, thank you for sponsoring our sponsors here and of course, patronizing them, should I say. But for Tampa Joe's, if you guys visit tampajoes.com, down there near the airport, 9316 Anderson Road in beautiful Tampa, Florida. As I always say, a hop, skip, and a jump from the airport itself. During the NFL season, you can catch Philly of the South, the Eagles Football Club, run by Mike Klein for 26 years now down there, but our 4th year at Tampa Joe's. So if you guys are from out of the area and you're coming down, please visit Tampa Joe's. Again, tampajoes.com. Serious food, a great place. You can't ever go with a bad meal out of Tampa Joe's whatsoever. And for LGDirect.net, here named by the studio, the LG Sales Direct Solution Studios, Larry Gilman, always, if you guys need apparel, hoodies, t-shirts, hats, you name it, reach out through LGDirect.net. Also for your payment solutions, credit card terminals, please visit LGDirect.net. And also, Philly Sports Trips are partners here at Broad Street South. Visit phillysportstrips.com for all the latest upcoming trips, including the one to Houston that Fuji will be down there, which that should be a great time within itself, because anytime you get a couple beers in Fuji, Harry, matter of fact, you might have to make that trip down there, because Fuji becomes the godfather, and it's a whole different show at that point. But visit phillysportstrips.com. Also, their DC trip, as we like to call them, the District Columbia University, whatever you want to call them, the Commanders. We don't go by any of that stuff here. But that's the trip that we hope that we can fill up the buses. And we're hoping to get about 1,000 folks on the buses. So please visit phillysportstrips.com and check out their travel packages. And for Harry Mays, you guys can follow him right here at Harry Mays TU. Harry Mays TU. And don't forget about, and Harry, if you can say the name of the show, because you say it best, I sound like an idiot when I say it.
Ah, jeez.
There you go.
As I used to say that to Martinez on a routine basis, because he just drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And then I got the golf podcast too, Swing It and Ding It too. So that's the other one I do.
Sounds like the guy next to me that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
That guy that follows the Bucks, the Buccaneers closet Bucks fan.
It'll never happen.
Hey, look, you're the one that had to be fired the first shot, my man. So I'm going to come back right at you with guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
Harder. That's
right. Listen, don't be ashamed. Just listen.
Fired up now. I've been quiet all night.
Just show Harry the tattoo you have on your chest with your man from the Eagles. Just show him. Don't be embarrassed. It'll be all right.
Easy with your bromance with TV12 down there. We know where his mansion's being built. You're probably stalking him. It's when you're delivering those pretzels.
Listen, he's down there in Miami, all right? So he's got nothing to do with Tampa anymore. Him and Giselle, they decided to go down to Miami. So
what, 30 minutes away from you?
What?
Where you live? Tampa Bay is right near you.
Right near.
Well, you're stalking the guy.
No. How about he talked
Brady
things? I was here
talk.
first.
You're making me sick with the Brady talk.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah,
You'll be all right.
Harry. He's the ring chaser.
I'm not the ring chaser.
Talk about a Cowboys fan. This guy was
Used
Go
to
back
be.
to like in the Cowboys.
Used to be until I
after
got
Jerry
sick and tired
Jones
of Jerry
quit.
Jones's crap. I can't
Oh, wow.
take Jerry Jones anymore. That's why I defected.
You're a
Until the
fraud.
old man's gone, I can't do it anymore.
Now he likes Kansas City. Fraud.
The original Dallas Texans.
It always comes out at the end
I'll
of the
be
show. It's
dead
just the way
first
it
before I
works.
ever root for the Cowboys.
Wow.
Here's
That's
it.
it.
Burn my
Let it go.
body before I ever root for
This
them.
is it. Let it go. Get over
What
it.
happened to this show, Angel? What's going on here?
He started it.
You get Fuji fired up in this. What happens? You got to come back during football season and watch how crazy he gets by the half. It's a whole different person. But listen, thanks to everyone who tunes in from Australia to Kenya to from New England all the way across to California and down in Brazil. We appreciate everyone who tuned in tonight. It was episode 140 with Harry Mays. We do appreciate it all. Harry, once again, thank you, sir, for coming on. And I will reach back out to you as soon as Charlie comes on. You'll be back on with us because it's going to be a great night.
Thank you, guys. Angel, Mike, Ryan, great to be with you.
Thank you, Harry.
Not a problem. Everyone else, enjoy it, and we will see you all on Thursday night.